Thank you, Program Director. Thank you very much for those very encouraging and warm welcome. May I commence by stating this morning, it is indeed my pleasure to be amidst all of you. It seems to be the ideal day for us in Durban. Usually when one describes Durban, the sunny side of Durban, I think all of us are elated with regards to the buzz in Durban around the sunshine, the warm people, and yes, you can applaud yourselves, because this is what you make Durban to be and has become. So it is indeed my pleasure, and thank you very much to the organizing committee. Thank you to CIGFARO in providing me this opportunity to present to you this morning, or more so, to facilitate various learning issues around developing competent professionals. And I know there's been much discussion around the theme, so I'm not going to repeat what has been said already, but I'd like to say a very warm greeting to CIGFARO leadership, both national as well as provincial, the executive committee members, representatives, esteemed guests and speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, our special participants at this prestigious event. Indeed, it is very prestigious, with much focus on you and your development and your well-being within local governments and within the public sector at large. If one looks at the underpinning issues around integrated finance intern and intern summit, and more specifically, the very tailored theme of this summit, which is demystifying professionalism, nurturing professional finance leaders. I think many of us and all the speakers from this morning, including that of the program director, has done justice to giving you a clear understanding of the theme and what it is meant for you. But may I remind you that this summit evolves around you. It is you who would make the summit. It is you who would determine the outcomes of this prestigious event. And we as CIGFARO and the leadership that is present here, and those that may have not been fortunate enough to join us, but have provided total commitment and support, have confidence in you in taking these initiatives over the next 2 days forward. So we trust, and I have total faith that you will do just that. My task this morning is rather simple. I would be looking at building ethical and visionary finance professionals. Okay, thank you. Kindly bear with me. I'm trying to synchronize both the systems. I hope it is going to work. I think there's been much discussion around what is ethical. What does ethics amount to? What is required of us as being professionals within local government, professionals within our respective sectors? And more importantly, what is it about you taking forward within the institution? What does it entail to be visionary? So we're looking at two important aspects. One, from an ethical perspective, and what does it mean to be ethical? And at the same time, that of being visionary. Okay? The one and the most certain thing for us to take cognizance of is that change is constant. Would you agree? Okay, so to what extent are we Okay, each one of us. To what extent are we embracing change? So if you look and reflect on yourself, within the organization, you look at yourself within your personal space, to what extent have you been embracing change? Can you proudly say, yes, I have been embracing change? A show of hands, how many of us? By show of hands, how many of us have been embracing change? Come on, don't be shy. It's only in the morning. The rest of us, why are we so reluctant? Have we been embracing change? Most certainly. All of you have been embracing change. If you look at COVID and you look at what COVID has done to us and the impositions that we've had as a result of COVID, you had to change. You had to, right? It was mandatory for us to change in so many different ways, and I'm not going to unpack that because that is a discussion for another day. But yes, in our own private spaces, we had to change, and the fact that you find yourself within this evolving environment means that you have to change on an ongoing basis. That is guaranteed? Yes. Okay? So the point that I want to make is that in today's climate of rapid change and increasing high expectations, effective finance leadership is needed. Would you agree? More than it has ever been needed before, we need that now in terms of you being prudent within your own sphere. It is obvious that new leadership practices are required, right? But exactly what is this new leadership that one is looking at, that one needs to aspire towards, becomes questionable. Okay, it also tests you as individuals to say, what am I aspiring to become as this new professional, okay, within the finance ambit? We need to take note of complexities and the challenges that are associated to these changes. And in particular, I think all of you would scream out loud when I say, what are the current changes that we find ourselves in? That of technology, okay? And the complexities associated to technology. More so, if one looks at 4IR and how it has impacted our lives. Yes? I mean, did you imagine that you could sit at home and work previously? Being office bound means that I had to go into office to get my work done. But wow, COVID has taught us otherwise, that we could sit at home and yet we can accomplish what we set out to accomplish. Yes? So those are changes. And more so, look at the global arena and look at how that is going to impact on you and has been impacting on you in terms of changes to systems, to processes. Okay, look at broader changes within society, within issues around climate and climate change. We, within KZN, unfortunately, have experienced that and is still experiencing it to a greater extent. And the question is, how's it impacting on us? Okay, how's it impacting on you and your work? And what can we learn from that and basically build and nurture the environment? Because it is our responsibility to ensure that we protect our environment. Nobody's going to do that for us if we don't. So these are the changes that makes your life more complex. So it's not about saying that I'm going to seal myself off as a professional and I'm going to look at what I need to do within the organization, because the organization within which you work is responsible for the society, your communities, yes? There's a direct link, so invariably, you cannot divorce yourself from what's happening around you. Hence, finance leaders must recognize these changing times and adjust their positioning, adjust their leadership in order to function effectively within this challenging, evolving workspace. If we don't do that, then there's a major question around relevance, around competence, around being rightfully placed, and I think none of us want to find ourselves in that position. Would you agree? Yes. Good. So current leadership is about what? that of empowering workers, expanding knowledge, inspiring and motivating others towards what? A vision to improve the institutions, the organizations within which you find yourselves, and most importantly, to cope with change. That is what we need to do. A good finance professional sees as their responsibility to inspire, guide, and nurture others. Yes, it's not about you, and you. It is about us, okay? To help to improve them and to lead by example. It is about collaboration. It's about teamwork. It's about uniformity. It's about working together. It's not about you and I, okay? It's not about them and us. And often these are the barriers that we create. Therefore, it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to ensure that we start dissolving those barriers, because that then is what holds us back in terms of achieving what we want to achieve. So when one looks at ethical and visionary finance leadership, what does it entail? Okay? And you've heard this before from the previous speakers, Algie Sita. You heard from the discussion around professionalism and what it is to be professional. And once again, to just reinforce it, it means that individuals need to behave according to what? Set of principles and values that are recognized by the majority as a sound basis for the common good, that are recognized by the majority, right, as a sound basis, rational basis for the common good. So it's about what is good for all of us and not just myself as an individual. Okay? Hence, the critical principles that you would identify will be that of integrity, respect, trust, fairness, accountability, transparency, and that of honesty. Remember that these values form the core foundation of you being ethical finance professionals. Okay? Just demonstrating, do we know and do we understand? Okay? And therefore, ethical and visionary professionals build on engagement, participation, communication, and strategic goal setting. If I may just pose a question. To what extent are you currently involved in goal setting? Any one of us? To what extent are you involved in goal setting? Not at the moment? Not really? Are you still exhausted? We thought that the tea break was going to do you a lot of good. We didn't have enough coffee. Okay, to what extent are you involved in goal setting? Anyone? No. Okay, and anyone wants to give a try as to why they think no, not at the moment? What is happening? What is not happening, perhaps? No? Remember, we have gifts to give away, okay? So this is your opportunity to shine as well. Any takers? Thank you.
Hello, thanks. I think for now, since we are still interns or trainees, we only have we only able to make decision to set goals for in a personal perspective, not for organization, because the goals for the entire organization are made by the leadership, which is top management and the council. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that input. Anyone else? Okay, so you concur that no, This is where we are as interns. And as interns, we have a specific mandate. And the mandate does not entail that we would get involved in certain strategic activities and that of goal setting. Is that what we're saying? Did I summarize? No? Okay. Did I hear a no? So I'm going to take a last comment. I know I have time against me. Where was a no? Okay, I'm just curious to hear the no. Please, by show of hand. Thank you very much.
Hello. No, check. Yes, hello? I can't hear myself. Okay, I think for us, in the local government, I think the goal in the local government context is to make sure that we deliver service equitably, fairly, impartially. If we go to look at the officials who are currently embarked in the supply chain, they are involved in making sure there is a proper flow of goods and services within that context. So if we can limit ourselves with saying that we are not involved strategically, I think we are limiting ourselves. It is up to us to burst out of our bubble and to make sure that these communities we give priorities to their needs. I think we are involved directly or indirectly. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much for that input. Okay, well said. And yes, both perspectives are absolutely on point. So am I involved in goal setting? Not really. Simply because of the fact as an intern, I do not necessarily have strategic mandate. And for that reason, I may not be physically involved in terms of crystallizing the vision, mission, the goals of the organization. But am I responsible in terms of inputting? Am I responsible in terms of implementing the institutional mission, vision, and goals? And to what extent am I driving these goals? How am I responsible within the organization? And I think at the very outset during your orientation as interns, you would have been introduced to this animal that you were to fit into, if I may say, and to find your space. And importantly enough, for you to realize the importance of your roles and your responsibilities, even as an intern. You are valuable within the organization. Please remember that. You are an asset within the organization, and you are very valuable in terms of achieving those set goals. So yes, you are instrumental in many areas in driving those goals, as much as you may have not crystallized them. But yes, you would have provided to a certain extent input, be it as to whether it may have been directly or indirectly, through the goods and services that you may have demanded as clients and as customers, that may have informed the current vision and goals of the organization. And here you are in a fortunate position to actually assist in the implementation thereof. So you have a mammoth task at hand. And the question then is, how best are you going to see that through? That brings us to the notion of vision, the notion of innovation, that of creativity. And yes, as the youth, you have lots of that. And I think many of us will envy you as youth because you find yourself in such a good space, allowing you innovation, allowing you uniqueness, allowing you creativity that previously was not heard of. So you have this golden opportunity to innovate, to be visionary. Kindly grasp that with both palms. Protect it and run with it, because that is where you will make the most impact, and that is where your uniqueness will shine. So it's left up to each and every one of us to find that in ourselves and to drive that forward. We understand that we have these current dilemmas, current realities that we are often confronted by. The dependency on modern and emerging information. You know, we have information overload. Yes? Do you find yourself in that position on a daily basis? It's like every minute of the day you have information overload, okay? Information and communication technology that is faster than you have ever thought before, okay? How many of you access your emails on your devices? Okay, almost every one of us, right? And what does it do to you? Does it do anything to you? Has it changed and altered your lifestyle in any way? Yes? Absolutely, right? The issue around agility. You are forced, when you open up any correspondence, what is your first response? Anyone? Can you ignore it? Can you? No matter what time of the day or night you opened up or you received that correspondence, can you just ignore that? Can you then neatly say, well, I'm working from 7:30 to 4, and if anything happens after 4, well, it has to wait for the next day. Can you say that? Do you do that? Okay, ask yourself, do you do that? And if you do, ask yourself why, okay? And you're going to get the answer shortly. So that is the agility that is required of us. And these are the challenges that we find ourselves in, right? Hence, one may ask, what are these core, critical, relevant skills and competence that I, as this ethical and visionary professional within the public sector, within local government, need to possess? Yes, information literacy. That of media knowledge. How do we handle? How do we receive? How do we respond to? Do we say anything? Sometimes we, as youth, and it is second nature to you to respond almost immediately. Okay? Often if you speak to your mentors, you speak to your managers, they would often say, take your time, reflect upon it, and then respond. Okay, that is the wisdom that you would get and you would see. Because as youth, we look at certain words, certain terms, and we want to respond, right? And as I said, it is your nature to be prompt and to be fast and to be on point in terms of how you communicate and how you respond. And when I say how you communicate as well, at this point, I think I'll be failing my responsibilities if I do not note the adjustment that we need to make between personal approach and that of a more professional approach. And we see the lines very blurred. I'm not going to sing for you, okay? So we see the lines very blurred in the sense that, am I responding to it from a professional level? Am I responding to it from a personal level? Who am I responding to? And what is very, if I may say, disillusioning at the moment is that many of us are not able to make that distinction. I hope that you're following. We are so used to being on our phones or devices all the time that we forget about the language that we use. Now, as a professional, you are not representing yourself and your personal thoughts. You belong to an organization. You belong to a certain institution. And you are the image and the brand of that institution. And you need to position yourself within that institution. You need to understand, and you need to drive that forward. So the way in which we speak, the way in which we respond, the way in which we communicate, the language that we use. And when I say language, I'm talking about what is correct, what is ethical, what is acceptable. Okay? You can be simple, clear, to the point, but respond to the issues at hand. Because often we present our thoughts and our views without even answering the issues that may have been raised, and the language that we use would be language that we may respond to our colleagues on social media. And as I said, the lines are very blurred. And for that reason, we tend to just, we do not reflect on our practices as closely as we should. So remind ourselves, okay, what cap am I wearing when I'm responding to these various requests? You may have colleagues, your team members may be colleagues, so you would perhaps communicate with them on a social level, okay? Your behavior and your language that you use is different from that of formal work within the organization. So let's be able to distinguish between that, and let's then project ourselves in a proper manner. So that requires us in terms of how we respond. One of the key requirements that many of us would have to subject ourselves to in the current environment that we find ourselves in is that of digital fluency. Now, previously, could you read English, and were you fluent in English? Did you have certain skills? Being a professional now, yes, in terms of digitization, you know you're working within local government, within the public sector at large. You know the demands in terms of 4IR, in terms of your electronic systems going digital, and the impact thereof. So could you imagine if for some reason or the other, you didn't find it necessary to keep abreast with these developments, what would happen to you? So just let's be mindful. In addition, modern innovations in technology, devices are getting smaller, okay? The speed is increasing. Are you keeping up to that pace? Applications of latest knowledge, the knowledge not just within your organization, not just within South Africa, within the region and at a global level, what is happening in your specific space, be it as to whether it's local government, be it as to whether it's local government finance, be it as to whether it is issues around environmental management, whatever the discipline and the field is, are you keeping abreast with the latest information, the latest knowledge? To what extent are we reading and learning? To what extent are we doing this? Okay? Have we then completed our qualification? Now that we are within graduate programs, it's time for us to take a step back and for us to then perhaps relax. I trust that all of you are saying, oh no, you're so wrong about that, because none of us are relaxing. We are all pushing the borders forward, and we are all, yes, each and every one of us are constantly reading, researching, keeping abreast of latest developments within our field, because you want to make a difference. And how do you make that informed difference? Unless and until you know the relevant things that are happening within your field. What is current? What is cutting edge? How can I be part of that cutting edge realities? How can I impact on positively within my institution, within my section? Okay? What is the level of innovation and creativity that I can bring to this system that we are using, to the processes that we are using? So you are not a silent voice. Please take note. You are valuable, and your thoughts and your views and your ideas needs to be well projected in order for it to be received and for it to be considered. The fact that it would be considered is victory on its own. Okay? Aligning to the team. So it's not about working in different directions. It's about all of us being synchronized as a team, as a collective, as a unit. So it's about having to share visions and responsibilities and activities. Often we find that we live in a competitive world. And that is normal. However, you cannot function as an island. Within an organization, if you look at the next image, you can see these various cogs. And they need to be synchronized, okay, in order for us to achieve those strategic goals that we spoke about earlier on. So it's not about me working in isolation from the rest. It's about us aligning ourselves together as a team and as a collective moving forward. Okay? It's about ensuring collaboration, coordination, and cooperation, the three critical C's that we have. Okay? If you have that, then we are going to have an efficient team that we draw on each other. All of us are unique. We have special traits. We have special skills. And we can complement each other. And that is the intention, for us to be able to enrich ourselves, for us to be able to learn and nurture each other. So in this development trajectory, it's about how can we as this cohesive team aid each other rather than having to divorce ourselves from one another because we want to be competitive. Why is it essential to be an ethical and visionary finance professional? I trust that all of you have been asking yourself this question, but why? Do I need to? Okay? Do I really need to reflect on becoming that visionary professional? Yes, indeed. Because if you are one, then you can inspire those around you. You can make that impact that we require for purposes of cohesion. Okay? And at the end of the day, you would be able to assist in achieving those strategic goals that has been set. You influence others in terms of behaving ethically and to be forward thinking, to be visionary. By setting an example and giving direction, others will observe, take note, they would learn, and automatically it's expected that they will then start acting in the same manner. Do you often see this within your organization? When things work well for some, you want to say, well, I also want to try that. Okay, maybe it's going to work for me. Yes? So that's a level of influence we are expecting. So it starts from you, and it becomes almost infectious, that it will then influence the others around you. Because that is the degree of power that you have. So in this way, ethical finance professionals can positively influence many around you, presenting them with a set of actions that they can adopt for a greater good of the organization. Because all of us have a common goal, and we are driving towards that common vision of the institution. So as a collective, we'd be able to achieve that more successfully. So how to become this ethical professional? Set an example. Let's be simple, right? And let's be practical in terms of what we need to do. So it's nothing extraordinary. It's nothing beyond you. It's all that you possess, but it's how you now start drawing on those strengths going forward. Set an example of being ethical and being visionary. Publicly champion the importance of ethics, right from wrong, yes and no. Be very vocal. The way in which you say it is important. The way in which you act. So when you want to champion it, the way in which you act is critical. Okay? Communicate ethics. During your orientation, this would have been one of the key aspects covered. Code of ethics within government, right? What is ethical practices? The various legislations and policies would have been drawn to your attention. The various frameworks, okay? The King framework in terms of implementation. You would have been exposed to all these formative issues within the organization. Are we communicating it? Are we recognizing it? Are we enforcing it? Even if it is an informal way, are we doing that? And if not, why not? And I think that is where we need to start centralizing ourselves around. The more we talk about it, the more we recognize it, the more informed we become, and the easier it becomes to implement, the easier it becomes to practice it. Okay? Be aware of bias. Often, it's human nature for us to be biased in how we work, how we prioritize activities, how we treat our customers. The question is that ethical? Okay? Why is one more important than the other? Why is certain task perhaps given high priority in comparison to others? Okay, do you have bias influence? And is that ethical? Does that make you ethical? Is that professional enough? Are you opening yourself up for challenges? Remember, issue around consistency as a professional, uniformity as a professional. So if you're not consistent, you're not uniform, and if you create double standards, somebody's recognizing it. And you're going to be challenged on that. Are you prepared for that? Okay? Or should you be guided by policies, procedures, and practices and systems that you enforce irrespective as to what the situation may be at hand? Make your decisions based on values, the values of the organization, your core values that you've created, that you need to nurture in terms of being ethical and being a visionary. Entrench that. Establish a zero tolerance for ethical violations. This is a tall order. But yes, it starts from us, you and I, and it is attainable. Okay? You've got legislation, we've got policies, we've got the various frameworks that guides us. As long as you raise the ethical questions, you underscore the ethical issues, that in itself is a major victory, and it is within your reach to do that. Practice justice and respect. Respect all, irrespective, and you'll see shortly, irrespective as to who it may be within the organization, inside and outside the organization. The issue around having to treat people fairly and equally, with respect, with dignity. You know, the program director highlighted this morning issues around Batupeli principles. And I think the chairperson very aptly added to that in terms of what does it entail from us as these local government finance interns in terms of people first, in terms of operationalizing the Batupeli principles. So are we actually undertaking that with sincerity? Or has that become a lost cause for many of us? Just a question. Practice good communication. Always be transparent in what you do, how you go about doing it. My general approach that I use, and if it's going to make a difference to any one of you, is that I would often share my thinking. If I'm using a certain approach, if I'm taking a certain decision, I share my ideology, I would share my thoughts, and then I will say, well, this is why I would be proposing X, Y, and Z. Okay? This is my thinking around it, just so that you understand my thought process. So be transparent so people understand you. If things are not on track, Be transparent about it. If there's delays, acknowledge the delays, be it as to whether it is your fault or whomever's fault it is. Remember, you need to protect the institution. So it's not about he did and she did and they did not. Sorry. So handle it very professionally, because at the end of the day, it's our organization, it's our institution, it's our section. So wherever there's a delay, communicate, yes, in terms of challenges, in terms of delays, but how you communicate that message needs to be very critically thought of so that the image and the brand of the institution is not tainted. Remember, you're a professional, and you're driving yourself towards being that ideal professional within the institution. Also remember that your actions matter more than words. Don't say I'm ethical, and you turn around and do something else. Okay? Don't preach about ethics. Don't preach about innovation and creativity, and yet when you go into another setting, you'll say, oh, sorry, that has been working for 10 years and we're not changing it. Sorry? But I thought you just opened up for new ideas and new thoughts. So practice what you preach. That's key. Okay, so that others can learn from you. They should be able to aspire to become you, okay, in terms of your values, in terms of the principles that you portray. A golden rule: never treat people differently. I often see this happening, and it's sad. I'm not certain why. I'm not a psychologist, so unfortunately I would not be able to answer that question. When I get there, I would share it with you. I often see different people treated differently. The way in which you greet people, the way in which you look up to people in some instances, okay, the way in which you embrace some people compared to others. Sorry. All of us should be respected, irrespective as to who you are and what level you are within that organization. So respect is a two-way stream, and we should maintain that. You treat people the way you want to be treated, right? Likewise, we treat everybody alike. And that is about being ethical. That is about being professional. You do not see people through different lenses, please. Okay? You do not have a skewed vision of the way in which you treat and the way in which you see people. And remember, as a professional within an organization, you have your other staff, you have the other colleagues, you have others that are constantly watching, following, okay, reflecting on you and your practices. So, you know, we often think that, well, nobody's watching, so what? Sorry. One would normally say Big Brother's watching, so just be wary, okay? So what are the key principles to ethical professionals? That of honesty. We need to build trust, okay? Present information, present the facts, not your views, not your ideas. When you're presenting facts, base it on what are the current statistics, what are the current situations. If your reports, for instance, are reflecting on that of 2020, 2021, you're drawing your comparisons from that. Yes, it's the facts, not what you assume to be in place. Justice, okay, I'm not going to unpack that. I think all of us understand. Often we find ourselves in a dilemma. We work closely with colleagues, we work closely with friends, and the issue around how do we take decisions. Please remember, as professionals, we need to be ethical and we need to be just to all, not looking at different people from a different lens, as I just said, or issues around taking decisions that will favor some over the other, okay? It's about basing it on clear criteria, clear guidelines, okay? And that is what you should use as benchmarks, being ethical and being professional. Do not be influenced by those around you and the type of relationships that you may have. Respect, okay? Respect to the extent of having to listen with intent. We often say, yes, I respect you and I respect what you say. But when we chat later on and, do you recall the suggestions made? Sorry? So did you really listen? And to what extent did you listen, or did you just hear and not take note of anything? Okay? Integrity, your moral compass. I'm not going to emphasize that any further, and I think all speakers from this morning have, to a large extent, show the impetus of having to enforce your values, okay? Your strong moral compass is what is required of you for us to turn around local government, for us to turn around the public sector, okay? Yes, you have a mammoth task on your shoulders, but it's about starting small, and together you can achieve that. We have to start enforcing integrity. So it's not about being selective in terms of our application of integrity. Accountability, answerability, to be able to stand strong and be answerable for the decisions that you do and do not take. Yes, answerability works both ways. Often, okay, when things do not happen, it's like, okay, when it happens, then I will explain. Sorry. It's about being constantly transparent with what is happening, to answer. If a decision was wrong for some reason or the other, you did not look at facts, okay? You did not take note of the current information that may have been presented to you. You could not use the system. You did not understand how to analyze, okay, the relevant reports that were provided. Be brave enough. Yes, it takes a very strong and brave person to say sorry and to learn from that and move on. So to account for that rather than to ignore it and pretend that it never happened, okay? So to summarize this, one would usually say that if one looks at the key principles of being an ethical finance professional, use the father guideline or the father frame. F for fairness. A for accountability, T for trust, H for honesty, E for equality, and R for respect. Okay, so those are the building blocks in terms of making ethical and promoting visionary leaders or professionals within government. What are your steps to improve ethical and visionary leaders? So what are some of the skill sets that may be required of each and every one of us? It's key for us to identify potential trigger situations. The anticipatory approach, anticipate, visionary, having to have the foresight to be able to identify things that may go wrong, why and how, and prepare yourself adequately to be able to address it with integrity. So do not wait for situations to unfold, but be very proactive, okay, is key. Deal with ethical dilemmas if and when they do arise. How can you do this? Prepare, understand what went wrong, why it went wrong, how it went wrong. Prepare adequately. Prepare thoroughly. I mean, none of you want to go into a meeting ill-informed, isn't it? Yes? So if you know you're summoned to a meeting, understand what is the meeting, what is the agenda, what do I need to know, what is the information that I need to go back and reflect upon, what do I need to understand, is there any additional information, are there any other individuals or team members that I need to speak to in order to inform me so that I go in well prepared. And that is a major recipe for success. Don't walk in with your eyes closed, please. Assess the evidence. So information is given to you. I often find that you request for information, you request for reports, and depending who you're receiving it from, and if people do not understand what you're asking for, you may not necessarily get the right information. You reflect on that information. Is it correct? Is it relevant? Is it valid? Is the format in which I receive the information correct? Can I then utilize that to then prepare the necessary activities and submit? So you need to do that assessment. And if there's discrepancies in that, you correct it even before pursuing the issues of the case at hand. If you find that the situation is beyond your reach, beyond your comprehension, beyond your understanding, you're relatively new, it's the first time you find yourself in this position, get advice. Yes, it's good to get advice because you're going to learn. You do not want to walk in there and then create another disaster. You'd rather get the necessary support from your mentor, from your manager, from colleagues that have the experience, bounce off the approach, and walk in well-informed and prepared. It's a weakness if you do not get the advice, but it is a strength if you do seek the necessary guidance and support. Demonstrate courage, and that is crucial. Focus on sound ethical decisions, not on your emotions, because you're dealing with certain people, they're elder than you, you've worked with them for so long, or you've known them for so long, or personalities should be out of the equation. So when you take these decisions, it may not be popular decisions often. These decisions may be very brutal because it's about ethics or unethical behavior in many cases. And how do you handle that? So be very clear in terms of what your moral compass is and how you are then implementing that. But be guided and protected by your policies and procedures and the frameworks that you have in place. So what is the take-home message? It's not about only doing the right things. More importantly, it's about always doing the right things the right way towards a strategic direction is what is required of all of us. So with that, I thank you, and I welcome questions and comments or any suggestions. Thank you very much.